All. Thank you for joining us for this webinar, How Technology Can Help Teachers to Sustain School Education. My name is Chatushka Dialvis, and I take great privilege and pleasure in being your host for today. A quick shout out to our exclusive sponsor, HCL Tech, Sri Lanka, for making this webinar available. They are 2 years in Sri Lanka and have created more than 1,500 opportunities for undergraduates and young graduates in the tech industry. HCL Tech is global and is present in 54 countries. They serve some of the world's best brands right here from our facility in Cinnamon Life. HCL Tech introduces Tech B program to make an alternative path to A-level students to become tech engineers. Tech B scholars will get to complete their IT degree whilst working at HCL Tech, and this program is only open to any Sri Lankan student from any school. So that's a quick introduction or a brief of our sponsor for today. Introducing our distinguished panelist, Mr. Tharaka Dissanayake. He's a computer engineer who has worked in the education sector for more than 5 years. He has worked in many levels as a lecturer, teacher, and tech educator. He's also the founder of findmydegree.lk, which is a platform where students can get university degrees related information according to the IZ score and district. Currently, he's working as a software engineer in HRC Labs. Our second speaker is Mr. Prasanna Silva. He's an O-level and A-level ICT teacher based in Sri Lanka with 10 plus years of teaching ICT A-level batch experience at a reputed college in Colombo. Mainly, he conducts A-level ICT classes online in English and Sinhala medium. He's also the founder and director of a startup, SpiritX Branding Solutions Private Limited, in digital marketing and brand identity design. So we have two informative, insightful presentations lined up, which will be followed by an interactive and engaging Q&A session towards the latter part of this webinar. So without further delay, I'd like to hand over to Prasanna to share his presentation and take this forward. Over to you, Prasanna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chatushka. Hi, everyone. Good evening to all of you. So, thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to kind of present my insights. So 12 plus years of teaching at a high school level, advanced level, and all levels. And how technology kind of can be used in the sustaining of teaching and maintaining the school education in our country. So we can run the slides, I believe. Okay, so we can move on to the first one. Right, so when it comes to a school, let us start off with a little bit of a exercise or an activity per se. Let's for a moment close our eyes and try to recall a significant moment during our schooling years. Let's just for a moment think about a fond memory that we all have had. Some of us might be still schooling, some of us obviously have gone out of school, and we as teachers are anyways constantly at school. So I'm pretty sure that you find yourself in the presence of or interacting with someone who is sort of very dear to you. It might be a teacher, it might be a colleague, or a significant other. So a school is a place where we learn how to interact with the society, a controlled environment, or can also say it's a sandbox sort of an environment where we learn how to interact and sort of blend in with the society. It's not just a place to gather facts. It's a place where our personalities are built. We can move on to the next slide. This is something that is a very dearly message to me that my school has placed right at the entrance. It puts the entire concept of a school very eloquently as enter to learn and leave to serve. So on the other side of learning, we have teaching. Moving on. So teaching is a service, a profession or a vocation, and to hone this talent and sheer capacity into their fullest formation, it is definitely a mentorship as well. Moving on. Since it is a service, as we all know, related to services, a service cannot be separated from its provider. Now, when I was researching for this webinar, as well as I have come across this video earlier, moving on to the next slide, um, there was this great TED Talk video that I came across on YouTube, uh, done by a teacher who has like decades of experience, Mr. Azul Terrones, under the title of "What Makes a Good Teacher Great." Now, under his research, like what he gathered from this is from students, right? A great teacher eats apples, loves to teach, isn't a teacher, quite alarmingly, and notices students' struggles, doesn't need to be a content expert, and most importantly, listens to the students. So, what challenges do teachers face and obstructs them from becoming greats? Moving on to the next slide. The next one. Particularly, for starters, the generational gap. So we as teachers, we can move on to the next slide. We as teachers mostly belong to Gen X's and Gen Y's. If you're not accustomed to this particular generation, I would kindly ask you to simply go through the generations that we do have, as in like what is established. So teachers do belong to this. I mean, roughly belong to the Gen X's and Gen Y's. Born between 1965-ish to something like 90, the latter part of the 90s. We are having a difficulty in understanding our students who belong to Gen Zs and Alphas. Uh, we were like honestly not born into technology, we just adopted it. There was a time where we did not have social media and other internet related distractions. But kids we teach in our classrooms are born into them. They have not known a time without the internet or the mobile phone and the social media platforms. So this poses a threat of being irrelevant and kids questioning the traditional teaching and learning methods. Moving on to the next slide. Yes, so an outsider may think that teaching is a 7:30, 1:30 job, and we kind of party afterwards, right? But as some of you all know, it is sort of far from the truth. We are constantly overwhelmed with paperwork, not particularly correcting books, but administrative stuff. The precious time we could have spent on actively listening to the kids and interacting with them. Moving on. And also the students and partly ourselves as well are quite easily distracted, and social media and other attention stealing ventures are constantly distracting them from being able to pay attention, the due amount of attention towards their studies and other professional building activities. So, moving on, research has found out that the amount of attention, like the average, the entire humanity, if you consider, has gone down drastically, significantly over a span of 15 years. Now, this is under 2015, even the 22 version is also somewhat very close to this. So, the attention, like what you can have paid onto a particular post or a text or something, has, in average, has gone down to less than 9 seconds. Moving on to the next slide. This is basically less than what a goldfish can actually, keep attention on, right? So that's less than the average attention of a goldfish, which is kind of alarming. So, next slide. So, when it comes to accessing the internet, all these devices that we have within the handheld devices and the devices that are in front of us, they all pose a really, convenient way of getting connected to the internet, and it's always with us, which is super convenient. But sometimes, like, it can sort of, backfire and get ourselves distracted as well. So, with all these issues, problems of how teachers can sort of, like, challenges where teachers that are imposed from teachers from getting towards, greatness or achieving greatness as like teachers and being able to help their students. What sort of solutions do we have? Moving on to the next slide. Now, the first thing is this gap that I was talking about, the generational gap can be somewhat bridged if you can empower teachers with the necessary skills, the training that allows them to use the concepts which are called smart classrooms and multimedia devices, where like the younger generation of teachers do use if the tools and the necessary facilities are being provided. But there is a lack of like motivation, and also like there is a inherent quality where like people like at some once you cross a certain age, you don't necessarily like to learn new stuff, right? So if we can empower teachers in terms of how to use these devices and be able to utilize them in providing a better service, or else a more related, a more relevant kind of a service to the students, that I believe would be better. I am pretty sure Mr. Tharak will simply emphasize on that. And so we kind of have to go for a hybrid level of teaching, not just the traditional chalk and talk and also in class education, but we need to go for something like LMSs, learning management systems, e-learning platforms needs to be created so that students are engaged. They can access these through their mobile phones and other kinds of convenient devices, so that they go home and they creatively are engaged in the educational activities. Uh, Amongst teachers, we can make it a mandatory requirement to gain IT literacy. As I've told you, like younger generations are already there, but for people who are having like 20, 30 years of experience in teaching, like it's not just about the age, but it's about like the, the character in them. But we can sort of like give them the necessary training and the literacy skills in order to use these devices and technology to basically fulfill their requirements, and adopt nationwide school management systems, basically to do the paperwork, right? So that is um, now, as I've told you, like the time that we spend on this somewhat like very redundant documentation, if you can automate them and then have them like made available through like systems within the school and out of the school, this would make lives a lot easier, and teachers can actually pay attention on developing more IT related teaching materials, resources, as well as like sharing them amongst different teachers and all that can be done if a nationwide school management system has been adopted. And also now to basically increase the amount of attention span of students, one thing that we can do is like a very traditional way, but we can modernize it. That would be reading, right? So if we can inculcate the practice of reading through innovative applications, and also being able to listen actively and then be able to respond accordingly. So applications and other kinds of software solutions can be adopted into overcoming these challenges. So, like with that, I kind of conclude my introduction into what are the challenges and then how we can overcome in a very surface level solutions. We can uh, move on to Mr. Tharaka's insights into how technology, how tools and technological innovativeness can be utilized in uh, resolving this further down the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prasanna. I think that was a very insightful and informative presentation. So we'll take the questions towards the latter part of the webinar. So I'd like to hand it over to Tharaka to share his presentation and take it forward.
Thank you, Mr. Prasanna and Chadushka. So, Mr. Prasanna had quite good ideas about teaching, and he emphasizes the importance of the teacher, the character teacher, right? And today our topic is like how technology can help teachers to sustain school education. So, in my slides, I've put my importance on the technology side. Okay, so if you move on to the next slide, in here, like I talk about why we need technology in education. Okay, so the main reason why we need technology in education, the most important one, and the reason why distant education came into society is that distance, right? So, like if someone is in a rural area like Tanamalila or some area like that, and if the teacher or the educator is in Colombo, like there was no way to get knowledge from that person, right? So in order to reduce this, distance learning was introduced through LMSs and different kind of websites like even Open University has their distance learning platform where anyone can register for a degree and do it. Like, and also Columbia University has one platform where like any student can register for their bachelor's of IT degree and do it from their home, right? Kind of thing. So the distance was the main reason for technology to come into education. And then like the other one is to make education available to everyone. So previously, like only the privileged people would get uh, I mean like they would go into these schools and which had a price tag. But right now in Sri Lanka, we have free education. But when it comes to higher education, like there are limited number of seats, right? So not everyone get a chance to go into university and learn. So, but with the technology, now educational content is everywhere, like even in YouTube, even in Facebook pages, you can find educational content so that you can get the required knowledge freely if you have an internet connection. Okay, and the next issue that why we need education is that social and economic issues, right? Like in Sri Lanka currently we have economic issue, and due to this we like we couldn't have schools properly, and prior to that we had COVID, right? And now we have air pollution issue uh, with us. So because of these reasons, like we are missing education, like students can't go out. And in order to sustain education, school education through these hard times, also we need technology in education for this, and to deliver content in an interesting way. So as teachers, like I used to be a teacher. Like I taught in a government school for like 5 years, and the most I would say like most hardest part is to keep students' attention, right? Because they have short attention spans. Like we need to keep them in attention. Like, we need to get their attention in order to deliver the content that we want to deliver properly. So by using technology for this, we can deliver interesting content to them. And as Mr. Prasanna said in his speech, like now students are in Gen Z, right? Like they are born, mostly they are born after 2000, right? So they are more into technology because they were born into technology, not like us. Like we had to adapt into technology in our during our A-level times. But the current students in schools, like they are born into technology and they have technology in their mind always, right? They use technology for everything. So if we can integrate technology and education together, like they would have much more interest in learning the stuff that we want to deliver to them. Okay, like if we can move on to the uh, next slide. All right, so evolution of education with technology, right? So the first three websites that I mentioned there, edX, Coursera, and Udemy, right? These websites, actually I've included few animations in these slides. I think the platform is not allowing it. So anyways, like I would just go through the content and explain it properly. So edX is a website where you can go, where anyone can go and do a degree from prestigious universities like Stanford University, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in America. Like from any university, any prestige foreign university, you can get a degree or a certificate course. Okay, so if imagine that you want to learn artificial intelligence, uh, so if you want to learn artificial intelligence, you can just go to Coursera and search artificial intelligence, and you can do a certificate course for free. And if you want to get the certificate delivered to your home, or if you want to get a digital certificate to attach it to into your LinkedIn or somewhere, then you can pay a small amount, and then you can do the certificate course. So education is there for everyone, but it is possible with technology innovations, right? And in Sri Lanka nowadays, like Monato University is doing a coding course. I mean, like Python programming and all that course in their distant learning platform with DP Education, and also Open University has three platforms that I mentioned earlier. So with this kind of platforms with technology, now it is easier for students in anywhere, anytime to learn any technology or any new courses that they want. And with tools like YouTube, Facebook, and even in TikTok, there are educational videos, right? So if you want to learn anything, you can just go to YouTube and type and search and learn, right? If anyone wants to do anything, that is how we do. Like even Gen Z is more into this. Like if they want to find anything, they would just go to YouTube and type it and search it. So that's how they do it in current generation. And the next two topics, educational games and VR education, like I would explain them in later slides. So currently we have few tools where education is gamified in the sense like all the content, like currently in most schools, what they do is like they provide printed material, right? And they look dull and only texts are available in most scenarios. So rather than providing such dull text assignments, if teachers can provide like educational games and some kind of interactive assignments to students through technology, it will be beneficial, right? So, and the VR education, like I'll touch on it later. So we should use technology in education for these advantages, and these are few examples where we are using technology currently to deliver education. And if you go to the next slide, I've put few tools that currently teachers are using in schools. Like when I was teaching, like I saw most of the teachers in Sri Lanka are currently using these few tools. Like the first one is of course like for sending messages, notices, and assignments and tests. Most of the Sri Lankan teachers use WhatsApp and Telegram. Okay, so they just put content and then students would reply to teachers using WhatsApp. So this is what they use uh, in most of the cases in Sri Lanka. Even during the COVID time, WhatsApp was the first tool that they started using in Sri Lanka, and then they move on to Zoom, Teams, and Google Meet kind of stuff. Uh, all of you know what these apps are, right? You have used it for something, I believe. So Zoom, Teams, Meet, and all these softwares can be used to deliver content, even if you are not in the same classroom, right? So you can deliver content to anywhere in the world, whenever you want, right? And then LMS and Moodles. So LMS is a system, a learning management system where uh, teachers can upload assignments and students can download them and do it. Teachers can put online quizzes where the students can do them and see their marks then and there. And also, like, we can create parent logins for LMSs so that parents can log in and see how their kids are doing. And Moodle is the like most used learning management system, which is implemented in most schools in Sri Lanka. But it's like not most schools, like only I believe like 50 schools out of like 10,000 schools in Sri Lanka have Moodles for them. And in Sri Lanka, the inside the school, most of the teachers are using projectors and smart boards, but because that is the technology that that they have been using for so long now, because projectors are available in schools, and few schools have smart classrooms which with smart boards and interactive boards, but not all the schools, right? Few rural schools are there, like where they don't have even computers, and so I believe that by providing these infrastructure and the tools that they need, we can effectively deliver content to our students. And these are the technologies that current teachers are using in the education in Sri Lanka. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. I think there's a video and I think it's not playing in this slide. So what I wanted to tell you is right here. I wanted to show a few interactive tech tools that can be used in order to engage students more in these studies. Okay, so the first one that I wanted to talk about was MindMaster. If you go to www.mindmaster.io, like it's a website where students can create mind maps easily. Okay, so in this website, students can create free accounts and they can log in. And if you ask them to, if you give them a topic, they can get in groups and they can create mind maps. You know what a mind map is, right? You can link the content that you want to add and create a mind map so that they can study the content later easily. Okay, so just remember the site www.mindmaster.io. If you go to that site, you can see like how it works. Okay, and then I've put another site called smartest.io. In this website, like you can drag and drop content and create educational material easily. Like if you just drag a paragraph and put it to the MCQ box. MCQ is multiple choice questions. Like if you just put a paragraph in that MCQ box, this website will automatically create MCQ questions out of that paragraph, and then teachers will be able to send those questions to students. Like I've never seen like teachers in Sri Lanka using this, but I have a few friends over in Sweden, and like they said they always use this. So if Sri Lankan teachers can use this kind of tools, and if our education ministries and officials can encourage these teachers to use these kind of tools, I think the engagement of students can be improved towards education. Okay, and the next one that I want to talk about is Kahoot.io. So Kahoot is another platform where teachers can create small educational games. Okay, so if they can create these games and then they can send these games to students. Students can see the leaderboards and how their friends have gotten marks. Teachers can send it anytime. Okay, so wherever the student is, they can just take out their phone and they just have to tap on the answers, and find at the end they can see that who has scored the highest. So this creates a competition among students, and they will be learning by playing a simple game which they like to do. Okay, so these are few interactive tech tools which teachers can use in order to deliver content without, sending boring and dull documents. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide, again here I've added a video, but I don't think you can see it. Like if you go and see Microsoft HoloLens, it uses these technologies called virtual reality, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence. Okay, so by the word virtual reality, what we mean is like by wearing the HoloLens kind of technologies, people will be able to see content with the surrounding area. Like to this, we call it mixed reality. You can see the current environment as well as characters inside created by the uh, glass that you're wearing. Okay, Microsoft HoloLens is one such technology. There are many other technologies. So by wearing it, like if you have a group of students, you can get one object and you can turn it, you can let students to touch it, and you can zoom it, pinch zoom, and do all that stuff as a group. And everyone else would be able to see what the other person is doing, so that we can see what students are doing, where they are looking at, and what they're thinking, and we can engage in educational activities in an interesting way. So I encourage all of you to go and see like how we can use Microsoft HoloLens kind of technologies for education to increase the students' attention. And it's really interesting to see like how they use these technologies to show work complex theories, like how a heart works or how a engine in a car works. Like they can simply show the animation, the 3D model, and explain the content if students are wearing these kind of equipments with such technologies. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, as Mr. Prasanna talked earlier, the main issue in Sri Lankan education sector, I believe, is that teachers not having enough technical knowledge. Okay, if teachers has the technical knowledge to search about these new technologies which they can use and to adapt these tools to their education platforms, I think students will get more benefit out of it. And the reason I'm specifying this is that when I was teaching in the school that I used to teach, like most of the teachers are, they're like up in their 40s or 50s, and they are not that into technology, right? So as Mr. Prasanna said, like if we can have a certification course mandatory for all the teachers to get to know these technologies, I think it will benefit students very much. And there's a model called TPAC model, where in educational psychology they use this model. Like if you can move on to the next slide. Okay, the image is not available, I guess. The TPAC model. Uh, if Shall we go to the next slide? I know that image is not visible. I guess it's in a different format. So the TPAC model has like three circles. Okay, and in the old model they had PAC model without T. PAC model means pedagogical content and content knowledge. Okay, pedagogical knowledge and content knowledge. Pedagogical knowledge in the sense like the know-how of how to teach. Okay, a teacher should know how to teach, right? So that's what we mentioned in pedagogical knowledge. Like කොහොමද උගන්වන්නේ කියන එක. Content knowledge is the knowledge of the subject that teacher is teaching. So previously, in previous decade, if teachers just had pedagogical knowledge and content knowledge, that's enough, right? Because there was no technology during that time. But now we have technology, right? So if we can intersect these two, pedagogical knowledge with content knowledge and technological knowledge, I think that uh, the students would benefit a lot, because we can use technological tools to create more engaging content for students. Let it be a presentation, or let it be a video, or let it be some kind of animation. So you can create these engaging content with technology to deliver content. Like it's good that you know like how to teach with pedagogical knowledge, but if you know technology and if you can adapt technology into uh, your teaching, you can deliver the content, you can deliver your content knowledge in a really interesting way to students. Okay, let's go to the next slide then. And the next one, the Bloom's digital taxonomy, is also one theory in educational psychology. Like earlier, it was just Bloom's taxonomy. There was no digital in it. So this is how students or anyone remember and create stuff. Okay, they first study, they remember it, then they understand it, then they apply it, then they analyze it, then they evaluate it, and finally they create stuff using that. So with today's technological advancements, you can do all this with technology, right? For for example, in remembering, like you can bookmark the content, you can add notes, uh, okay, and you can highlight in PDFs, okay. So you can easily mark stuff on technological content like documents. Earlier, like when we have textbooks, it was really hard to uh, highlight in textbooks, right? Because in Sri Lanka, like we have to pass on that textbook to the next generation who are going to come in. So you can't mark anything on the textbooks. But right now, we can download any textbooks using the government website, and we can highlight on that PDF file without any problem. And we can search the content as soon as, I mean, like we open the file, we can do a search and find the content that we want. You don't have to turn the book, right? So remembering and understanding would get easier. And if I go to the last point, which is creating, like currently we have blogging platforms, video uploading platforms, and podcasting platforms, right? So anyone can create a video, right? Today with smartphones and everything. So rather than giving paper assignments to students, like teachers can give like assignment to create a video on a topic as a group together. So they would get together and do it, and they would have fun doing that, and it would also like encourage them to get together and do it in a creative way, so that rather than giving simple text assignments, teachers can give assignments as creating videos. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so in the next slide, like what I want to talk is like the connectivity issue, the issues in Sri Lanka, like things to improve in Sri Lanka to increase tech usage in schools. Okay, so if you are to improve the tech usage in schools, the first thing that we should do is to improve the connectivity. So during the pandemic time, like most of the schools were using technologies to deliver online content, but the problem was that like most of the students, they did not have a internet connection, a proper internet connection. Okay, rural areas did not have internet signals, so like they had to climb trees, and I've included one image here, but it's not visible. Like they had to go on rooftops to get signals and to learn. So that was really hard. So the first thing that we should do to sustain school education in Sri Lanka is to properly cover the whole island with a proper connection. Okay, and then the next thing that we need to do is to improve facilities in schools. Like I used to work in a school where like 5,000 students were there, but for all those students, they had only like 27 computers. For all that 5,000 students, they had only 27 computers. So as a government and as a country, like we need to look into these schools, and we need to improve the facilities in schools. We need to give them smart boards and smart devices to sustain school education. And the we need to improve the literacy of ICT teachers, that you already talked about it. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So if we provide all these connectivity facilities and all the other stuff, I think teachers would be in a place where they can conduct STEM classrooms. STEM in the sense like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now you know the highest demand is for these technologies, right? Even in Sri Lanka, the highest demand is in the tech field or the science or engineering field. But in the other fields, there's no such demand for education. I mean, like for such demand for education, or in jobs, there's no such demand in other subjects. I'm not saying that they don't have any demand. Like I'm saying there's a higher demand for technological subjects, right? So if teachers have like all the facilities that they need, and if they have proper technological knowledge, like we can conduct STEM classrooms like in Europe. Like what they do in such classrooms is that they create stuff with students, and they teach using incidents. Okay, so this is one area where I can use technology. We can use videos online to teach students how to make robots, how to do engineering stuff, how to do maths properly. So I think if the government and this and the management of schools can provide teachers with all the facilities properly, uh, then teachers can conduct such lessons, and then the engagement of students will improve. Like one problem in Sri Lankan schools right now is like less attendance. Like people tend to go to private tuition, or like to learn from somewhere else rather than going to school, like because like they feel that it is kind of boring to go to school to learn only from textbooks. Like if we can integrate such content into our syllabuses, and if we can have such activities for students, I think the student engagement and the students presence in the school will be improved. All right, let's go to the next slide. So, as we use technology for teaching, teachers get another responsibility. Like they need to make sure that if we are teaching using technology, we need to make sure that the students are not getting cyberbullied. Cyberbullying in the sense like pinpointing to someone, or dishonesting someone online, or bullying someone online. Like one can get really hurt using through that. um, it happens, and there are incidents that are reported. So as a teacher, like you should have a good technological knowledge in order to overcome these challenges. Okay, and the next one is privacy. Now, I told you that as soon as Sri Lanka went on to online education during this COVID time, that most of the teachers, what they used was WhatsApp, right? So in WhatsApp, like anyone can see anyone's number in a group. In Telegram, it's different, but in WhatsApp, like anyone can see anyone's number. So anyone can text with anyone. It's good in a school environment because like most of them are friends. But in other places, like if we add people into groups, and like if we integrate the whole school into one WhatsApp group or something like that, then then intruders can also get in and get the numbers of students and their parents, right? So this can lead to problems in the society. Okay, so teachers should keep that in mind, and then use a tool where the privacy of students keeps protected, right? And there can be some scenarios where students cannot turn on their cameras, like they might be in a poor place, or like their society can be different. So teachers have to understand that, and teachers should let them keep their camera off if that is required for them. Like teachers should not force them to do it, as I believe. But in a school environment, like it could be compulsory and necessary sometimes, but I believe that teachers should give them the freedom to select and do whatever they want uh, when it's up to the camera and mic and those stuff. And the most important thing is health, right? So when students are always in front of a screen, you know that these millennials, right? So they use phone for all their tasks, so they are anyways with the screen. But if we give so much educational content, and if we do lectures all the time, and if we force them to look into the screen all the time, like it is not going to do good, right? So it will be bad for their health. It will cause computer vision syndrome and all those kind of unhealthy issues will be rising. So teachers need to keep an eye on that, and teachers need to have the responsibility of that and give proper breaks between education sessions online. So I think that's how teachers should take responsibility when they're using technology. We can move to the next slide. Okay, so other than using technology for teaching, as Mr. Prasanna mentioned, like the management of schools also need to use technology. Like they can have things like automatic attendance logging, student databases, HR systems for teachers, and online grading systems, right? These tasks take so much of teachers' time and students' time. So, in order to deliver better educational content and for teachers to focus more on teaching, I think if the schools can automate these stuff, it would be really beneficial. Like that teachers has to, like, if they want to take a leave, like they have to go like to 2-3 places to get a sign from the sectional head and then the principal and then to submit it to some other place. Like it takes time, right? So we can automate this stuff. And if our education ministry as a responsible entity, like if they can start an initiative to give a proper HR system to schools so that they can track the leaves and all that really easily, rather than doing everything on the paper, right? So from the management side, to sustain schools with technology, I think these kind of steps should be taken in order to protect school education. I'm not going to explain all these in stuff, so I think today's topic, like how technology can help teachers to sustain school education. Uh, I've discussed all the things that I wanted to discuss, like having interactive tools and all that. So I think like you look into them and add them to your teaching methods. Okay, thank you very much. Chachka, over to you.
Thank you again for that rather captivating presentation. A lot of insight and information shared within a very short period of time. So, to the audience, we will go for a quick break. We will take a very quick stretch break. There is a commercial, and we'll come back and we'll have a few questions and answers from the panel. Thank you.
Progress. It comes from having a clear objective, a goal, moving forward unwaveringly towards success. It can be fast, it can be slow, it can be disruptive, but one thing it can't be is stopped. While progress might seem inevitable, breakthroughs come from supercharging it, delivering business outcomes at scale, fulfilling aspirations with compassion, innovating responsibly, finding new levels of efficiency, removing barriers, unlocking potential. Business is always moving, so it's easy to confuse motion with real progress. Whether it's day-to-day success or transformational gains, we supercharge progress to change the game. HCL Tech, supercharging progress.
So, welcome back. Right. So, thank you again, Tharaka and Prasanna, for those insightful presentations. And again, thank you to HCL Tech for making this webinar available. Thank you for sponsoring this webinar. So, there were a lot of interesting points that came up during the presentation, and it's evident that tech education is pretty much the way forward. My first question, I'd like to raise it to Prasanna. I think very rightly he pointed out the generational gap, and look at Generation X or even millennials. We might have not been born into technology. In terms of upskilling and reskilling, um, taking into consideration that digital literacy is a mandate for educators, how do we, what is the way forward? Do you, I understand you touched on smart classrooms and also multimedia related trainings. But given the circumstances, now we are speaking about this air quality issue. Let's say students are not able to come to school physically. Should schools also look at digital trainings on platforms such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams, where teachers, educators know the fundamentals of uh, and digital etiquettes on how they can navigate a classroom session? Or is it something which is quite standard? Can someone be acquainted with platforms such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams relatively easier? I just wanted to get your experience on that, Prasanna.
Yes, Chatushka, thank you for that question. So, like this, particularly the current situation that we're going through is, I hope that is very temporary. And like what we used to have, I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic and after the Easter attack, where when the schools were closed down, and like the experience that I've had along with the teachers, I mean, myself and a couple of teachers were asked to basically give or create a platform or an environment where the teaching and learning could continue, like in the absence of like in-person classrooms. So I mean, the obvious solution up at that point was like basically to, as Mr. Tharaka also elaborated, was to simply create study packs and send them through WhatsApp groups and all those sort of things. But thereafter, like we stepped up a little bit and then moved into Zoom. And then I was like constantly on my phone, like answering questions and giving them. I mean, the enthusiasm was there. Not to say like they're kind of like dodging the training and all that, because they were kind of understanding the necessity, and they were trying to I mean, I'm talking about the teachers who are not particularly IT literate, so those who were actually not using a smartphone for that matter. So training them and then taking them through like a step by step process. And mind you, like this once they have gotten their basics right, they were like really engaging with their students and creating. They were very enthusiastic. For some reason, they had not the privilege of like getting themselves introduced into this technology. But once they had the basics right, I mean, they were like really off the charts. We were kind of amazed. We basically, as ICT teachers, like we are anyways into technology. But people who are like dancing teachers, people like Sinhala teachers who have
Sure.
been there for 20, 30 years, they were really interested in this technology. And then, of course, there were certain incidents where like the students were kind of taking, I mean, sort of exploiting the tools and all that, like trying to sort of mute the teacher, for example. So like those with a little bit of a help and all that, like they were sorted out. But obviously, like the enthusiasm was there. Like I remember particularly one time, like we had this course in school where like teachers were given the basics of word processing and then PowerPoint presentations and all that. So this was an in-person classroom where like after school we had about couple of hours on a particular day of the week. And one particular teacher, I remember, he was like very close to retirement for that matter, and he was like holding the mouse with both of his hands actually. That's how he started. And by the end of the course, he actually ordered a laptop, and he was sort of like getting into designing and creating these resource materials for students. So that was like I mean, those are like really pleasant experiences as ICT teachers who are kind of like migrating this tradition. I mean, they are like full of knowledge and experiences. So if that knowledge and experience could be transferred on to the students, I mean, the values are the same, right? The platforms might be different. The value
Mm,
sets that we
mm,
need to kind of like transfer on to the next generation should be the same. And so like this could be done. maybe on an in-person platform, or else like through virtual platforms like Zoom and other kinds of uh, like Teams and other platforms can be done. But you have to have some like say commitment towards it. Especially the
Mm.
trainers needs to be very patient and sort of like taking them through step by step in order to get this done. This can be done.
Thank you, Prasanna. I think it seems like it's a pleasant experience. It's progressive as well, so it's good to hear that feedback. The next question was, I think, Tharaka, you touched on certain courses that can be accessed through Coursera. It can be accessed through platforms such as Udemy as well. Now, considering the economic and social factors that we're currently facing in, sometimes students do not have, cannot afford to make that investment to go overseas and take a particular course, pursue an undergraduate degree or a master's. But still, is it a mindset change that is required? What is it? Why are students not investing in these particular courses? Is it a mindset change? Is it different globally? Do you have any sort of statistics behind it? What is the reason? Is it the credibility factor or the lesser recognition coming in from these particular courses compared to going overseas and doing a master's or bachelor's degree? I see it as a positive. Can you enlighten us and the audience as to what your experience is?
All right. Thank you, Judge, for the question. I think like currently, most of the students and the professionals, they look into these sites to get their certifications done, like because they don't have much time. So professionals like mainly go into these sites and they do a certificate course, and so that they can put it on LinkedIn or the CV, right? So they do it. But when it comes to a degree, like students' perspective is that you need to get into a university, you need to live that culture and to see like to have that fun inside, like that they want that kind of thing, right? So and it is also recommended in the society, right? Even we recommend
Mm.
to have the personal touch rather than just doing everything online, right? So it is about like developing a person as a whole rather than just giving the technical or the subject content. We need to look onto students as to how to improve their personalities, their soft skills, and everything. So by going into a university, I think these can be improved rather than just doing it online. But the advantage of doing these courses online is that like they don't have to spend so much and they don't have to go to a completely different country. They can live with their
Exactly.
parents and everyone, so they can stay in their home with the comfortable environment. Like when you go abroad, like you don't know like how the circumstances would be. But with the current situation in the country, like with the economic crisis and everything, like everyone is trying to go abroad these days. Like mostly most of our colleagues in our offices, like they are migrating to different countries. So Sri Lankans see education is also as a way to migrate. Like they go to a foreign uh, degree and then they find a job there and then they stay there. Like, that's why they prefer like physically going to universities. But like uh, if we just think about the knowledge, I believe that from within a house in Sri Lanka, we can access the engineering knowledge from the best engineering university in America, like Massachusetts Institute of Technology, right? So we can get that and we can do that. But I think it's their choice, right? They should select like what they want to do. But in technology wise and the knowledge wise, I think it's okay to go to these platforms and get a degree. But if you want an overall development, I prefer, like most of them would prefer, to go and do it physically. I think that answers your question, Jessica.
Thanks, Taraka. Definitely. I think investment in education is a key. And like you rightly said, given the circumstances, this is an alternative platform that they can use to do courses through these different platforms. So thank you for enlightening us on that. I also want to know now, in terms of having face-to-face classrooms, even both of you all as experienced teachers will be able to assess the students. You will be able to immediately adjust your teaching approach based on the responses that you get from the students, because the body language of the student is something that you can easily observe. You can get you can assess how the students are responding to you. You can ascertain the quality of the lesson, your delivery and experience through the body language and the emotions. When you're conducting classes online, when an educator is doing a class online, how do they assess the students' reactions, and how do they adjust, adapt, and thrive in terms of providing a good delivery? Can I get the opinion of both? Maybe Prasanna first and then Tharaka.
Yes, Chandrashka. Yeah, that you raised a really good question. So one of the main challenges through online platforms we face as educators is to be able to, I mean, not being able to actually see the body language, the facial expressions, and all that. Now, in a in-person classroom, we can obviously see them, observe them, and the implicit, communication sort of takes place. But in online platforms now, there is both positive as well as the negative sides of this. The positives, what I believe, is now there are people in a classroom who are kind of very timid and introverts who does not actually raise a hand and ask the question, but they're quite active, more so than the extroverts or the people who are outgoing are basically very active in terms of like the chat box, right? So they're asking questions and getting them clarified, and then also having very during whatever the breaks that we do have during online sessions. I mean, they raise up sir, did you watch this movie and all that. So I mean, it kind of gives them a bit of a chance to interact with the educator, and it's not just the front row of people who are interacting with the teachers as in a physical classroom. Everyone has the same opportunity to kind of engage themselves in online classes. And as you said, one of the downsides of this is there are people who never interact, right? So out of 40, 50 kids, there can be 10, 20, or 10, 15 people who never answer, who never kind of respond, or there raises a question are they actually in their seats in front of the device? But you can you can actually, I mean, we have also been, since we are also in the process of learning some other courses and all that, we know what we do, right? So we can actually do follow up these things in order to do damage control, and to have evaluations per se, at the end of the class, each and every class you're getting 5 MCQs. You need to answer then and there and sort of respond back to me, or else we can do a follow up. I mean, since they are in school, we can kind of say speaking to your parents and all that, and getting the correctional approaches can be done. But there is also always a give and take in these sort of scenarios. Thank you,
Thank you,
Ganesh.
Prasanna. Tharaka, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, yes, Chatushka. So, like, what I used to do is like when I was teaching online during the pandemic time, like when we started, like there was no way to get like whether students are doing it properly. Like, I did not make it mandatory to turn on their cameras because it is their privacy sometimes. So, the method that I used was like there's reactions in like most of the online teaching platforms, right? Even Zoom. So students can send reactions. Like I would ask questions whether you got it or is this okay? Like they can put like smiley faces, angry faces, or anything, so that I could understand like what is the kind of state that they are in. And at the end of the lecture, like so what I used to do was like I had this Google form where that I asked like how could we improve this? Like what are the things that you need to uh, that I need to change from my side in order to make it more interactively from your end, so that if we can create like such forms or feedback forms, and if we can collect the information, analyze it, and change our teaching methods according to that, I think that would be beneficial for them.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
it.
you, Tharaka. Thank you, Tharaka. I think that was a very comprehensive and holistic response that was shared. A few more questions and One is, I think, both of you very rightly highlighted in terms of attention span. It seems like attention span is decreasing, and I think Prasanna brought in some stats as well. It's, I think, 2015, if I can recall correctly, it was about 9 seconds. Tharaka, you brought in, you said about educational games, certain interactive tech tools. A very, the elephant in the room is that you have classes online. Even we as professionals, when we go for meetings, what we usually hear is physical meetings are better because of interaction and engagement compared to online meetings all day long. Similarly, this is, I think, also something which is a concern. So, is it? What would you do very practically with your experience? If you can just take, if you are to do a lesson, what are you touched on certain educational games, but is there something more that you would do to have the classes interactive and engaging? If you could just enlighten the audience on that, Tharaka and Prasanna. Maybe Tharaka can go first, and then Prasanna can touch on it.
Yes, Jajushka. So the advantage of having these interactive kind of educational tools is that, like for example, if I take Kahoot, the one that I told earlier, like we can send games to students' phones anytime as a notification. Okay, so when they touch on that, they can see the question that teacher has asked, and they can just select randomly the answers, and at the end they can see the leaderboard, like from the class, like who have won. Like it creates a competition among them, and it motivates them to do more of these challenges. And while they're doing these challenges, their knowledge increases, right? So rather than just delivering the content through normal mechanisms like just having a Zoom lecture, like by having these kind of interactive tools, like students can learn from anywhere, right? They might be on the bus, they might be on the train, they might be in a different classroom environment. Like they can just get their phone and answer the content and see the content that teacher is sharing, and while having a competition among friends, like in the school education system, like we have these ranks and all that, like just to create a competition among the students, like that, so that like we can understand the better students, as well as like to create a competition among them, right? So having that kind of environment using the technological devices that they use all the time, I think that would benefit, and they would get the knowledge without knowing that they're learning, right? So that's the advantage of using such kind of technological tools.
Thanks, Tharaka. Thank you.
That's it,
Prasanna,
Jajushka.
would you like to add as well?
Yes, Chadushka. Now, in addition to like gamifying the subject knowledge, what I believe is like one of the core competencies of students once they sort of get out of school and sort of get into the industry, they kind of it's kind of a requirement to go through maybe reports or stats or something to simply go through the notes and be able to comprehend it and be able to keep their attention on one thing, sort of like a skill. So for that, I believe like the same approach can be taken if you can kind of find out a way of like say encouraging students to read. So it might not be like physical books per se, but at least Kindles or else like apps that are allowing you to like train yourself into reading, understanding, and comprehending, and basically answering questions. So reading is, and also being able to listen to others as well, because this is something that that the younger generation is lacking a lot. Not being able to keep the attention on one thing and not being able to pay attention to someone else talking, because it's not just the content knowledge. It's about like having like a healthy relationship with a significant other also. So like listening skills and reading, I believe, is like two of the most important skills that they would have to kind of developed. Maybe like we can use technology in order to do that, but those are like core skills that we do need to develop amongst the kids.
Thank you, Prasanna. I think that was a Again, a very comprehensive response that you shared. So, in the interest of time, maybe one last question before we wrap up. Especially considering students, let's say prior to the ordinary level examinations, they depend a lot on parents. So parents also need to be empowered. They have to trust in online education, especially students who are below the age of 16 might not have a particular device to be connected to an online class. They might not have data to pay for. Uh, where do you reckon, with your experience, are parents, do parents play a particular role? I think the obvious answer is yes, but how should parents be empowered, and how should parents respond to this is my question. I'd like to ask from the both of you, maybe Prasanna first and then Tharaka.
Yes, Chadushka, it's again a very good question. So, like in education and sort of like upbringing of the kids, not only the teachers but the parents are playing a major role. It's like it's like we both the entities have to sort of play a key role there in order to bring up the kids to their fullest potential. In terms of devices, now as you said, obviously kids who are under 16, in those ages, they don't own a device. Like the majority do not own a device, so they rely on their parents' devices to access homework or else like get online on classes and all that. So, and the parents have a concern. I mean, we're again sort of bouncing between the generational gap, right? So the parents are always like on the defensive side as to oh Ati, oh Kathy, then okay, then the sort of a approach, and then also the kids trying to exploit right the access to the devices in order to interact with their friends through social media and all the other stuff. So that this has to be communicated to the parents, and they need to be like see, in terms of class schedules and all that, they need to be attentive to when the children would require it, and also basically be informed about how and what, up to what extent, or else what sort of application should they be using. And in some way the internet service providers have also kind of controlled it by only allowing Zoom, Teams and other platforms through their packages systems what they have introduced. So they are only allowed to access Zoom and Google Classroom through those packages, and they don't have access to any other kind of internet accesses or services. And so the students, rather parents, needs to be informed and educated about how their devices should be used by the children. And the children also needs to be, I mean, this is this awareness that we need to raise amongst the children needs to have happened from a younger age, as what are the problems and the issues that you may come across. As school teachers, we often maybe one or two incidents per month where social media usage being not done right, and then students are very depressed about there maybe a photograph or as a visual or a video or something that has gotten out, and they're kind of they don't know what to do and how to react to it. So they can be given instructions as to and they can be taught as to how to use social media and other internet related services responsibly. That is one of our responsibilities as teachers, and educate the parents at the same time as to how to balance this between education, and the fun stuff could be done in a very healthy way, but how to limit the content to education. Thank you, Chandrasekhar.
Thank you, Prasanna. Yeah. Tharaka, any
Yes,
comments?
Jessica. So I think parents' role is really important because as Mr. Prasanna said, like there have been many incidents where unfortunate incidents has happened because of this. Mostly the students who are doing online learning, I mean, like the younger generation, like teens, like and they are in their youth, right? So they may go into like the uncomfortable territories, like if they are not controlled properly, and this may lead to uh, problems in their lives, right? So it's really important for parents to have computer literacy. uh, so, like as Mr. Prasanna mentioned, like telecommunication companies has limited the number of apps that students can access through packages and all that. But parents can also like they can step up the game. There are a few applications where parents can install in students' devices to see what are the websites that these guys are accessing, what they're typing, and all that. They can see, like these are called like children trackers, or some tools which parents can use to track students' activities. So that, like, if parents can use such a tool in their kids' phone, like if they're given a separate phone for their children, like they can see, like it's not like invading their privacy when it comes to parents. Like parents need to know what students are doing. So I think that kind of approach would be better. But I know that most of the parents like don't have a technical knowledge in order to do that. But if we can encourage them and encourage them, and if we can like uh, teach them like how to do these kind of things and how to install such applications, and if we can raise the awareness about this, I think it would be better for our future generations. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think very rightly, educators as well as parents have equal responsibility in upbringing students and supporting them in their journey of education. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing so much of insights. Again, thank you to Tharaka and Prasanna for sharing so much of insights uh, during this time. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, HCL Tech, and co-partnered with Chocolate in making this webinar available. So that's it from me. Thank you again to the audience that joined us for this webinar today. Hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Wishing you a wonderful festive season ahead, and enjoy the rest of the holidays. Goodbye for now. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Prasanna. Thanks, Taraka. Thank you.